It's time to talk Florida State football predictions. Let's get it.
You are Locked On Seminoles, your daily podcast on the Florida State Seminoles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back into Locked On Seminoles on this live edition. We are going to be talking all things Florida State today. I am your host, Brian Smith, longtime college football recruiting analyst. Thank you for making Locked On Seminoles your first listen each and every day and on this live show. Truly appreciate you stopping in. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Right now, it is time to get your futures bets in over at the FanDuel app. Make sure you do it now. Let's talk a little bit about my predictions, and then I want to jump into what everybody else thinks. I'm going to have 4 predictions for myself. And I've got, my goodness, I've got 11 questions for the chat and then a few sub-points on some different players with the same question. So players in terms of stats, games you think they can win or won't win. We're going to be talking about position groups. We're going to be talking about Florida State in terms of a big box. I'll have some off-the-cuff questions because I almost always do when I do a live show. But overall, the bottom line is Florida State football discussion. If you've got a comment, make sure you jump into the chat. Let's have some fun with it. And if you're listening to this as a taped episode, this is something I'm going to be doing more and more of. If you want to check it out, it'll still end up on Apple, Spotify, Podbean, and everywhere else in addition to YouTube. So I've got 4 predictions that I want to give out today. Let's just go down the list. Number 1 on this. At some point this year, Florida State's going to go into a game and the national media is going to say they got no chance or they're definitely going to lose, yada, yada, yada. I'm going to go ahead and predict that Florida State will either beat Miami or Florida. They'll be underdogs in both those games. I can pretty much assure you, barring something unforeseen, but they're going to beat at least one of those. And I'm going to give my reasons why now. With Florida, it's real easy. At the end of the year, either Napier is going to be really in or really out. I spoke to somebody today that works in the state of Florida that's a major media member. We're like, we don't know. We have no idea what's going to happen with him. They could be in a situation where they've already fired him. So if there's a fire sale at the end of the year, if things have gone wrong, I don't care where that game's played at. I don't care if it's played in the backyard of the president of the University of Florida. That's rough. Florida State would be the better team then. If everything's even and both teams are, playing pretty good, I'll go with UF because that means DJ Wagway's healthy. But again, don't be surprised if things go sideways because when was the last time you were confident in Billy Napier being consistent week in, week out, with his team being consistent on effort, special teams in particular? Holy cow, that's been a disaster more than once. And then their defensive secondary just being a sieve. So you never know with Florida. As for the Miami game, it's a rivalry. It's in Tallahassee, and it's a contest where we really don't know what to expect, just like with Florida. What's going to happen with the secondary? They did bring in Heatherman, really good defense coordinator for Minnesota, but that's after 1 year. So is he really a good defense coordinator? I don't know. They bring in several transfers for the defense again. Is it going to click? I don't know. Are they going to be congruent in terms of just understanding the playbook and understanding how to pass off player to this guy, to that guy in his own defense? Again, I don't know. Florida State's got speed and they got size at receiver, plus they got Pittman. They've got Jalen Lucas. They got Amari Williams. They've got Landon Thomas. They have a unique group of players to attack. Miami, they could win that game on big plays and not even win the line of scrimmage. It's unusual, but it's actually happened quite a few times in the Florida State versus Florida rivalry and the Florida State versus Miami rivalry. Big plays outside the numbers are the norm in the state of Florida, so I wouldn't be shocked there. Next, this one's kind of more fun and it's more direct. Florida State will average at least 31 points per game this year overall. Now, I could have gone a lot lower. Their schedule is not easy. Again, you got Clemson on the road. You got Miami coming to town. You play at UF. You got the Bama game to start the season. And you play at NC State. Don't forget about a Friday night game at Virginia. If you go in there sleepy and lay an egg and score 20 points, that would certainly hurt the average, et cetera, et cetera. But I just think the offensive line, from what we've heard, they're going to run the ball well. And when Gus Malzahn's offenses work, it means you're running it downhill, setting up big plays. And Tommy fits him to a T in terms of the offensive possibilities with the outside game with screens, with the ability to throw deep, and then, of course, quarterback runs and just working off the RPO. I think he's a fit. Florida State will have at least one game this year. They go over 50 is my guess, and it probably shouldn't surprise anybody. Could be against one of the lesser teams, but Florida State football needs that. So, again, I think they'll average at least 31 points per game. Number 3, this one is kind of fun just because not many people have talked about numbers with this young man yet, but barring something unforeseen, Jayvan Boggs will be a starter. That's what everybody's kind of saying. It's not any news flash anymore. So if he's going to be the starter, he's got to produce. I'm going to go over on 35 receptions for him. I don't think he'll be the primary guy because they still have 2 tight ends that are good. They got Squirrel White. They got Deuce Robinson. But still, if a freshman starts at wide receiver at Florida State, game 1, especially against Bama, that's a sign. I'm going over 35 receptions for true freshman Jayvan Boggs. And number 4, this is another one, and this is a feel-good story. I'm going to guess that even fans that don't like Florida State will like this. Former junior college player, former guy that was injured, had to miss the season, Jaden Jones at defensive end. Before this season is over, he will be a household name for those fans that are true ball knowers that understand football. You don't have to start and make plays that way. It's just, are you a consistent contributor? When his name is called on ESPN or whatever network it is, people will know who he is. He's put in the time. Jaden Jones has put in the effort, and he's been coached well. When you combine all those things, and it's a scheme that can fit his abundance of talents, apparently, and he looks the part. Good Lord, does he ever look the part? That's how you win football games. So it's going to be fun to see if that one's right, and I really hope so because it's a great story. He's out of JUCO, Mississippi. These are the kinds of kids that you really want to see succeed. And Florida State's got a history of it. I hope that he is that guy. I'm going to jump into the chat, and then I've got 11 questions plus, as I noted at the outset, I've got some subpoints for questions as well. We'll have some fun with that. Let's see. John Doan, 28-24 FSU. Are you talking about the first game, the Miami game, the Florida game? Which one are you referencing? From McPatty, what do you think a record or type of year Florida State would have if we beat Alabama? If they beat Alabama, I think the over-under kind of changes because it's 7.5 on FanDuel. Like, I think the floor would be 8 games at that point because you've proven you can take a step up. I still don't think they've got the depth they need, but the floor should be 8-4. 10-2 shouldn't be out of the question at that point because you've figured some things out that even the media in Tallahassee hasn't talked about. So great question. And I hadn't really thought of it from that perspective. If they beat Alabama, I would probably live in the moment, to be honest. But you would have to think that barring Alabama just completely laying an egg, and I doubt that's going to happen, with the Kalen DeBoer football team after what happened at the end of last year, their players kind of just died off in that game against Oklahoma, which I'll never understand. They laid an egg in that one. I imagine they're going to be more focused this year. We'll see. But if that's the case and Florida State still beats Alabama, yeah, you would have to think 8-4 is like the floor, and a chance to go 10-2 would have to at least be, quote unquote, in contention. Spartan Knoll 71. Aloha from Honolulu. Next Saturday, I will be sitting inside of a stadium on a college campus watching live football. Are you going to the game in Ireland? Because Florida State doesn't play next weekend. I assume you mean in 2 weeks, but I'm hoping that, then again, maybe you are going over there. I don't know. Bottom line, Florida State plays in 2 weeks. If Spartan Knoll is referencing that, good for you, man. By the way, better you than me as far as the heat. I do not want to be in Tallahassee at 3:30 on any day in the month of August. As for the questions, I'm going to jump into those here in just a second. I'm going to do a quick break here. Then again, I've got a bunch, and I think they're fun. We're going to do over-unders. We're going to have some fun in regards to which people you think are going to be the key influencers at wide receiver and pass rushers in particular. I'm going to talk about those spots most. That is next here on Locked On Seminoles. August 26th is officially FanDuel Futures Day. a brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold predictions and preseason hunches. For just 24 hours, FanDuel is giving you deals on NFL predictions. So whether you're calling your MVP, eyeing a long shot division winner, or ready to crown your Super Bowl champ before week one even kicks off, this is your moment. So division winners, Final Four, possibly talking about the MVP. Is somebody going to knock off Patrick Mahomes, who's almost always the favorite to win it? There are a lot of different ways to go with the NFL picks. Rookie of the year, most passing yards. There's a lot of different opportunities. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your future bets now, because Futures Day is one day and one day only. FanDuel, play your game. All right, thank you once again for making Locked On Seminoles your first listen each and every day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Truly appreciate you all stopping in to check out everything that's going on with Noles football and college football across the board. We are back to college football season. It's officially 2 weeks from the time I'm doing this podcast. I literally did it at 3:30 on a Saturday afternoon because that's 2 days to the moment when Florida State would be hosting the Alabama Crimson Tide. I want to get back into the chat real quick. There were a couple other comments here I wanted to get to. Luke, who do you see being the cornerback 2 week one, the true freshman or Rawls or somebody else? I think it's Rawls, based on the body language, seeing the way that multiple coaches have spoken about him, and the fact that he's a junior in terms of his year out of high school. I know he's a redshirt sophomore eligibility-wise, but maturity against an elite opponent is 90% of the time the way coaches go. They just don't go with freshmen and sophomores very often. If it's close, they go with the older player. For an underclassman to beat that kind of player, they got to beat him by quite a bit, because they don't want to lose because of mental errors. They want guys that have had reps. Rawls has been around longer. So my guess is it'll be him. However, Jerry Wilson will be the other guy at corner. The nickel spot, there will be several different possibilities throughout the year that could play it, but barring something unforeseen, and to be honest, the way Florida State runs their scheme, the nickel spot's considered safety, but I don't know how you want to really look at it. Earl Little can play some corner, so he's kind of a hybrid player. It's truly a nickel. And then the bigger question is safety. Is it Barker? Is it Brown at one spot? Is it KJ Kirkland? Hussey's no longer on the roster. I don't know. Is Quindarius Jones going to be the other corner? Is it going to be Edwin Joseph as a guy that plays more than one spot? Because I don't know who all is going to play where. Like they're going to do some different things now that Hussey's gone. That takes away some reps. How many spots? I mean, there's a lot of ways to look at this. I'm guessing that Joseph, Little, and Kirkland start based on the information I've seen at safety. And then Rawls is one corner, and then Jerry Wilson will be the other. But again, the depth, like Barker, maybe Kai Bates, there's a lot of different players that'll be a major factor with all of that. Spartan Knoll, Hawaii versus Stanford. Oh, wow, there you go. Very cool. Good for you, man. I've never been to Hawaii. I'd love to see it. Let's see. John Doan, Florida State Bama game. I know most don't think our defense has been given enough credit. I don't disagree, and it's one of the reasons I'm going to talk about on the back half of this. I got several questions that I'm going to discuss, several players and situations. John, very, very good. It's some foreshadowing. I know that wasn't your intent, but foreshadowing nonetheless. John Doan again, looked at the previous game with Alabama in 2017. Yeah, we lost. Think we'll do better than that game. That game was weird. Isn't that the game the quarterback got banged up for the Noles? Correct me if I'm wrong on that. But anyway, all right, now I'm going to jump into the questions. And if y'all have anything else that you want to ask me something, whether it's about the Noles, their schedule, quarterback, something with college football, the Michigan. I do want to throw this out to the chat. This is one of those I want to throw in. For those of you who have not seen it yet, the University of Michigan got their, for whatever it's worth, their comeuppance from the NCAA. There's no bowl ban, and they didn't have to lose any of the wins. They're going to lose a lot of money, and there's show clause penalties for the Connor Stallions guy got 8 years. Jim Harbaugh got 10. Those guys are never going to be in college again. Sharon Moore got an added game. They self-imposed too. They're adding one, and there's a few others, and there's like 20 to 35 million, depending on who you want to talk to, in money they're going to lose, and some recruiting stuff over a 4-year period. But it's just interesting. They didn't have to give up the title. They don't have to give up the Big Ten titles. They don't have to give up any wins, yet they were definitively caught cheating. There's a lot of stuff in that I find interesting. All right, here are the questions in regards to the Florida State Seminoles. Number 1, surprise player for the Florida State Seminoles at wide receiver. Let me set the precedent here. Deuce Robinson doesn't count. Squirrel White doesn't count. And now that we pretty much know Jayvan Boggs is going to start, those 3 are off the board. Who, if you want to look at it this way, who's the first guy off the bench that like really puts in numbers, or maybe competes with Boggs or beats Boggs out, or maybe gives Squirrel White a run for his money later this year? You got BJ Gibson. You got somebody like Lawayne McCoy. Who do you have? As I kind of look at the depth chart on my computer, Elijah Moore, maybe, Camden Fryer, the guy that I haven't heard as much about, and somebody correct me on this if I am incorrect. Has anybody heard anything about Gavin Blackwell recently? The transfer from North Carolina. I have not. I don't know if he's banged up or just been completely beaten out. Is he a non-factor? Like, I was surprised they brought him in the first place because he'd never been a hit. But who do you have as quote unquote the player for Florida State at wide receiver? The surprise is not named Deuce, not named Squirrel, not named Jayvan. I think that's a good starting point because none of those guys I think are going to be outside the mix at receiver. They're going to be consistent, barring injury, of course. Oh, look at this, the GOAT. I'll say it here first. Florida State for the win. Let's hope you're right. Let's see. This is an interesting comment. Billy Joe, not confident in the depth on defense. Are you talking about the defense across the board or a specific position, Billy Joe? Let's see. John Doan, McCoy. Is that the quarterback or was that somebody else? McPatty, do we have any mismatches in favor of Florida State in the Bama game? That's a really good question. The secondary for Bama is loaded, talent-wise. Now, if somebody's having an off day, you go at them. But physically, there was literally not a spot other than maybe their quarterback that I'm iffy about. And I mean that literally. All those guys have aspirations in the starting lineup on both sides of the ball of at least going to the NFL Combine. I mean, they're more talented. Far as a specific matchup, I just think it's straightforward. Who on earth is going to guard Landon Thomas on seam routes, on posts, or even on like a pigtail where he goes inside and cuts back out for a 6'5", 240 guy? He's rare. And then the others that aren't really shocking either. Pittman. Now, he's listed as a tight end, but he's more of an H-back fullback. He's a really good receiver. Using him in the slot. If they use a safety on him, they use a corner, they use a linebacker. When applicable, Tommy's got to get him the ball because they don't have the right guy on him. And then finally, Jalen Lucas. It's not about who's guarding him, it's who can tackle him on a swing pass, on a screen. I'm not worried about him running routes, or maybe it's on a speed option. I want to see him on the corner, full go, and somebody try to line him up and tackle him. Good luck. Let's see. The GOAT. My question is referring to not hearing much about Blackwell. Yeah, I don't know what's going on with that. I really don't. Like, correct me if I'm wrong, but his name has just been vanished. If there's anything else to that, I mean, I missed it. I just haven't heard his name. Larry Zimmerman. If Alabama wins, you still at 8-4. Great job, Brian. I picked Alabama to win this game forever ago. I'm still picking Alabama to win. They're the better football team. Doesn't mean Florida State can't win, but I mean, I know there are pretty much Noel fans in here, but Alabama should win. They're the better team. Doesn't mean that your season is tanked. I think Florida State will play better than most, and I think Florida State will keep it in within the margin of error, meaning they're not going to get blown out. We'll see if I'm right. To that point, I think that'll give them confidence, and that will help them. Plus, they got 2 cupcakes right after. That should help Florida State get their offensive and defensive lines and all that stuff settled. That stuff matters. That stuff really does. Let's see. Michael Madden, I think Elijah Moore is on the verge of a breakout year. His size and athleticism is going to be hard to beat. You're not wrong. They've been talking about Elijah for quite a while, and I'm curious to see how they use him more deep, intermediate, short. I think he's got really good hands and ball skills, but I'm not sure how that's going to work. We'll see. King Spleen, just joining. Do you think Coach White's defense is going to challenge the eyes of Bama's inexperienced quarterback enough to allow our defensive backs to make plays on the ball? Absolutely. That's a great point. For those that didn't play DB or don't understand it, zone is different than man completely. You're watching the quarterback, not the guy you're guarding. To that point, it's a little bit easier to get hands on the ball technically, but if you're in man and they try to force it in, you turn your head at the last second, you get picks. Usually in man, the free safety is the guy who gets all the picks because he's the only one standing back there looking at the quarterback. Let's see. Billy Joe, Bama has linebackers that can cover. Yes, they do. The Lawson kid, for any of you that are trying to make notes now, Lawson, the inside backer for Bama, he will be as good a player as there is on the field. Experienced, savvy, proven, size, speed, production, you name it. That guy in particular is the one that I would fear if I was Florida State. Lawayne McCoy, wide receiver. This is from John Doan on Who Could Surprise. That would be my first pick as well. I think he's the first guy off the bench that makes noise, and they can use him in the slot, or they could use him outside. I think I like him just slightly over Elijah because I think Elijah is more of a boundary. I think there's more opportunities, and technically, you're talking about Lawayne McCoy, the guy that's got incredible hands, incredible shiftiness. He might return kicks or punts this year at some point. You never know. The GOAT. Let's see. We are going 10-2. I got us losing to Clemson and Florida. If they go 10-2, man, it's going to be a great year. The GOAT says, but I'm saying that's a good thing. We don't need to hear much about him. If we did that, we will be saying a lot. Okay. John Doan, he goes with Lawayne McCoy for his breakout player at receiver. We got Luke. What are the odds Florida State splits the Big Four games in your opinion? So you got Miami, you got Florida, you got Bama, and Clemson. I don't think they're that great because Clemson, I think, is very likely a loss. It's in Death Valley. They're going to remember the last time Florida State was there and beat them, and they completely stole that game. I like that game the least out of the four. And I like Bama the least next. That's the first game. The Miami and Florida games, I think, are the easier ones. Miami, that's always a crapshoot, but it is at home. That's the most likely. UF is the hardest to predict because I have no idea what's going to happen with Billy Napier. Trying to pick what's going to happen week to week with UF is a nightmare. But that game's on the road, and they have the better roster. They got the better quarterback. They have all the advantages now. Again, does Billy survive? They've got a ridiculous schedule. I do not know. Patty McPatty, do we think the defense is worse off than we think after the dismal of a player in the fashion it happened? Is that a red flag? I think he's referring to, I assume, Conrad Hussey. I look at that from two different perspectives. Then I'll get back into the questions here in a second. Number one, look, Florida State has to do things when they see fit. But I've heard that this wasn't like just out of the blue with Hussey. So it might be surprising to some that are really around the program, if that's accurate, that it took this long. So that tells me he's talented, which I already knew because I knew the kid when he was in high school. But that also says you still got to replace him. This could be addition by subtraction, but you're losing a talented player. So if there's a major addition to this, I'd be surprised. It does open up more playing time for somebody else. An opportunity oftentimes begets result, but you got to prove that too. So we'll see. But if there's problems, man, they got to go before the season starts. So it is what it is. Let's see. Story about you coming to be a Florida State fan. What is that in reference to? I'm not sure what that's about. Do you think this Isaiah Williams kid sticks? I don't know. I know Isaiah pretty well. Family likes Florida State. They made him a good NIL offer. I know that flat out. And they recruited him all through the process. This is something I'm glad you brought this up. This is a great point, and the GOAT is the one asking this. If you do not recruit kids after they commit somewhere else and just like they hadn't made any announcement, you won't get them. I don't think that happened consistently with the last staff. A lot of the new assistants are better recruiters. There's a few that were holdovers that could recruit too, but the new staff is a massive improvement with recruiting. Massive. To get where you need to go, you got to win on the field to get the top 100 kids consistently. That's just true. But at least they have the right guys on campus now to get it done. You got to go win on the field, but that's important. As for Isaiah, there's a long way to go, and he's going to get recruited by everybody, but he's committed to Florida State. Let's see, King. We focused a ton on Gus being a run-heavy coordinator, but do you think Gus, with some of Mike's philosophy, will have a more efficient passing game? That's a great question. It's one that I need to see too. But with that, Gus isn't going to change this much in his career. So your point about him collaborating with Norvell is truly prudent. Norvell is a guy that's more balanced historically than Gus. And by the way, he had a quarterback in 2019 in Memphis who couldn't run a lick. He couldn't run around the block, but he threw for 4,000 yards. So he's probably done it a little more than Gus. We'll see how that goes. Let's see here. I might as well go ahead and throw out the second question. Over under 60 catches for Deuce Robinson. And if you don't want to use Deuce, you're not sure. What about for Squirrel? Does either player go over 60 this year for Florida State? And then another one just to throw out there. Let's see, over under 35 catches for Pittman. Now he's an H-back, fullback / slot. They're going to move him all over. Gus did throw him the ball quite a bit. I think they're going to have a very balanced offense, and he may only catch 20 balls because they got so many different options. That's possible, but I put the over under at 35 for Pittman. We'll see if I'm right or if that really matters at all. But those are some pretty interesting opportunities because if they go over 60 with Deuce, that's probably really good. Let's see. Billy Joe, have you heard of Tommy's taking care of the ball in the scrimmages? Think turnovers will be huge against Bama? I've heard mixed results. I think Tommy will always be a guy that turns it over some. He is a risk taker. The GOAT, do you think Isaiah Williams kid sticks? Yes, we just talked about that. There's a good chance. And you said over. Okay, so you think over on the 60 catches. I assume you mean for Deuce, but either way, that's pretty interesting. I think it'll be really close. I think 60 is a pretty good number for him. T. Sully, Simpson is really comfortable going to Wavos and Hale. Look for him to spread the ball. I don't know how much they're going to be balanced. I mean, they got Ryan Williams. They got Jeremy Bernard. They got the transfer from Miami, the big body guy, Isaiah Horton. I think they're going to be a pretty good team at throwing the football, but not necessarily balanced. They got at least the first two are NFL guys in some capacity. I mean, Ryan Williams is definitely an NFL guy, but we'll see. Luke, how many years do you think Castellanos, or how many yards do you think Castellanos rushes for this season? That's actually one of my questions, so I'm just going to ask this. I got the over-under on 800 for him. I'm going to go over. I'm going to say he's 850-ish, somewhere in that range. Again, over-under on Thomas Castellanos. How many rushing yards? 800 over or under? Let's see. Over for Squirrel, says King Spleen. He's got him at 5.5 per game. Okay. That means he would be at 66. John Donald, what is Ty Simpson's backup if injured? They've got a couple of different guys. They got a 5-star freshman, and they got a guy they brought in from Washington that's a big body pocket quarterback. Kid can move a little bit, but he's still more pocket. And I have not heard. I don't know if Bama is going to announce that at all, but either way, if Ty Simpson's getting all the reps in camp, they'd be in trouble just like anybody else. First game, if your quarterback comes lame or whatever, it's going to be rough. It's going to be really rough. Christopher, Have not heard anything about Cam Davis. He could be a great weapon since he was a quarterback in high school. I've heard his name a couple of times in press conferences, but most of the running back chatter, centers towards Chroma, the true freshman. Now, I don't know if Rodell's going to start. I don't know if they're going to use a rotation. I don't know if it's going to be situational. I mean, Gavin Sawchuk's gotten some discussion, Sam Singleton some discussion, but I think it's mostly Chroma. Let's see what we got here. King Spleen. Will Gus talk Mike out of going for it on some fourth downs? Mike turned down too many possible points for my liking. That's a great question, but Gus is pretty aggressive too, to be really honest. Over for Tommy from the GOAT. I have 800 yards as the rushing total over under. We'll see. King Spleen says under for Tommy and over for Robinson from John Doan. 60 catches or more. John Doan's going over. Michael Madden, what do we got? Over for Tommy. I think he's going to make an effort to show out this year, and we will need him too. No disagreement there. Let's see here. The GOAT. I say over for Tommy because he's going to get most of the yards. Bust. Yeah, that's a good point. Tommy's unbelievable in busted plays, so don't be shocked. Luke, Chroma is going to be a first-round pick in 3 years. I'm pretty confident saying that, assuming he stays the course. Very well could be. Catches well, great at breaking tackles. Yes, sir, no, sir. Easily likable guy. I've been around him a few times. I mean, he's very likable. He fits what the NFL's looking for. And every down back who can block and catch, who's not going to cause you problems off the field. Thumbs up. That is exactly what the NFL is looking for right there. Next question that I have. Let's see. The leading rusher for running backs. I want to throw that one out there, and let's go with another one too. Will Florida State be over or under? We're going to move to the defense as well on sacks, the total being 40. I think that's a fair number, anywhere from between 35 and 40. You could make the over-under. But if you get to that 40 plateau, and this is why I used it, that's kind of the separating line. This is where elite begins. You got a chance to be top 20 in the nation. With Florida State's plethora of defensive linemen and speedy DBs and speedy linebackers blitzing, I think 35 should be the floor, not the barometer to make. 38, 39 at least. You get to 40 and over again, you're top 20. You're pretty much an elite. So what do you say to that? Again, we've got, will Florida State be over under 40 sacks? And also the leading rusher for the running backs will be who? I think that the running back one, I've went back and forth a few times. I would probably go Chroma, but I'm not sure. Him being a freshman, it could still end up being Sawchuk, Rodell. Either one of those I could see as well. We'll see. I don't know. That's a really tough one. Let's see. From Luke, who do you think leads the team in sacks this year? I think that's pretty easy in my opinion. It's a question I've got coming up in some capacity in a second, but James Williams. Yeah, James Williams is the transfer from Nebraska, defensive end / jack. He's 6'4.5", 6'5", 262. He fits the profile. I'll put his number at 7. I think they'll be pretty balanced, but I'm going to go with 7 sacks for the big guy. Yeah, that's about right. James Williams with 7 sacks. Go with that. King Spleen, over on sacks, I think we will get more coverage sacks than people think. That matters, man. Doesn't matter if the quarterback had 5.5 seconds or 2. Did you drop him? Florida State secondary's got a chance to be pretty good. So, again, I think the floor is 35. If they don't make it to at least 35, that's pretty disappointing. You got Darrell Jackson, Daniel Lyons, you got Jason Jenkins, you got Williams, you got a couple of freshmen, you got Jaden Jones. There are a lot of different players, like the Desir twins. I'll make sure I didn't miss anybody. We'll look at the depth chart here real quick. But like a specific note. But, Amari Williams. I forgot about him, so there you go. I mean, that's a lot of guys, man. Kevin Wynn, the true freshman out of Georgia. Florida State's got enough players to bring defensive linemen in droves. And that doesn't even count the blitzing safeties, linebackers, nickels, the boundary corner coming off on the short field. It's those possibilities are there. 35 minimum sacks for Florida State, or else they really failed. 40, it should be at least the goal, though. From the GOAT, as the year progresses, do you think the offense or defense will be the strength of the team? Defense. I think it'll be defense. It's year one for Gus's scheme, and I think the following is something eventually it's going to bite Florida State. And I've said this 20 times. If I said it once on Locked On Seminoles, at some point Tommy's going to get hurt. I've said it a million times about him in different places, different podcasts, when I covered him when he's going to UCF, etc. He is a major risk taker. And I'm not just talking about throwing the football, I'm talking about putting himself in peril. There's going to be a game somewhere along the line where Tommy's out and Florida State struggles. I would bet heavily on it. So I'll go defense. Let's see. Blake Nagy, Noles go 9-3. They go 9-3. I think most people in this chat, myself included, would be quite happy. Let's throw out a couple more questions here. We're getting towards the end. Somebody asked me a minute ago, over under on sacks for James Williams, how many or who would lead the team? I said James Williams at 7. I've got the over under on him at 6.5. Do you guys think he'll go over or under? Again, he's the pass rusher that transferred in from Nebraska, 6'5", 262, somewhere in that range. Pretty twitchy guy. Another kid that's very likable, will fit in the culture very well at Florida State. And quite honestly, his massive frame, I think, will do well at the NFL level. He can figure it out and learn to be an every down player, because I think he can pass rush pretty well. But you got to be a 1st and 10 guy as much as anything else in the NFL, even if you are a pass rusher, because teams will just run the ball on you now. And then finally, number 10 here, Daniel Lyons, KJ Sampson, Daryl Jackson. Which true defensive lineman has the biggest impact for the Noles? Now, impact can be utilized in a lot of different meanings. So use your own. Doesn't have to be statistical. I say Daryl Jackson because he's going to take up the most double teams and create opportunities for the linebackers and safeties. And he'll also help his brethren along the defensive front because they won't be taking double teams. But I think he'll be the most impactful. Don't get me wrong, he'll still get some plays in the backfield, but most people are going to double him because he's too talented to go one-on-one with. He's 335 and athletic. So we'll see how that goes. And then finally, Amari Williams, will he end up with more snaps on offense or defense this season? I don't think there's a real easy way to predict that one because he's practiced both throughout fall camp. So we'll see how that goes. Luke, do you think Daryl is most likely to be the best player on the team this year or somebody else? That's a great question. I think Daryl's the most talented guy on the team by a mile. He's probably a top 5 talented player in college football, just raw skills. But I need to see the effort all the way through. Best player is different than the most talented. Best player, I might say Pettibone, the guy he works against every day. He seems like he's got the mindset. Might be the center or the nose guard. After that, the most likely candidates, Landon Thomas and Deuce Robinson, obvious ones. By the way, if you want a surprise player overall, and I'm not talking about linebackers today, Elijah Herring, the transfer out of Memphis, very experienced. He's got over 100 tackles over the last 2 seasons. He's got size. He's 6'2", 230 plus. Do not be surprised if he leads the Seminoles in tackles in 2025. Let's see here. Rhinos. Are you still high on Cam Davis? I haven't heard much about him, but I am until otherwise proven. You believe he had elite talent come out of high school, but you don't talk about him as much lately. The reason I don't is there's no media access, and Cam hasn't been in front of the camera. Nobody knows what's going on with him. I really don't know what's happening. I'm surprised, but I just report the news, brother. Christopher, over that 335 should work in a great way. Yeah, like he's talking about Big Daryl there. I mean, Darrell being the guy in the middle, like if he's the most productive in a way along the defensive line, like the true defensive lineman, even if he doesn't have more than about 30 tackles, and he may not have much more than that because he's going to get doubled on half the plays anyway, that just means a lot of other guys made plays. So if he takes the team effort approach first, Florida State's defense will be very, very good. Nupatal, how many rushing yards for Castellanos versus Bama? I'll say he runs for 70, passes for about 260. I think he'll have to scramble a lot. He'll probably pop one for a 30 or 40, but he's going to get sacked a few times too. And don't be surprised if you're like, no, if he doesn't bait himself into running around too long and eventually losing even more yardage on one of those plays. As I noted, he is a risk taker. King, who's returning punts? Feel like it should be Squirrel or Danzig. I haven't heard. I don't think they've announced it yet. And I don't think they want to announce it. Welcome to college football 2025. B-Raider, Tony White averages 3.5 sacks per game for the last 4 seasons. You can add at least 10 more to that total now that he's at Florida State. Well, 3.5 is 42. So you're saying he's going to get 52. I'm not going 52. Be neat, but that's a lot. John Doan, I'll be conservative and go under for linebacker sacks. LB sacks? Wait a minute. Well, I'm not sure what you mean by LB sacks. Let's see. Nopatal, is the defense going to have speed? Yes, that I am not worried about. Will they be confident enough with the knowledge of the defense to play fast? That I don't know. And I've talked about that a bunch. Great question. It's one thing to have track speed or even good football speed. But when you implement a new defense, until I see it with my own eyes over and over and over again, I do not trust that the defense knows what it's doing and won't have paralysis by analysis. It's just learning a new defense. You won't know until you see it. Coaches aren't going to say at a press conference, yeah, we're struggling to pick up the scheme. They'll never say that. And you know some of the kids are. It's inevitable. So Florida State needs to understand that sometimes less is more. This is my pet peeve with coaches. I don't give a crap how much you install in fall camp, spring ball, whatever. It's what you call in a game that I'm concerned about. Keep it simple, stupid. Even if Bama knows what's coming, if you do it over and over again and you're really good at it, you got a better chance because you don't give up any busted plays. John Doan, Amari Williams will have more on defense. They may need him to because of the pass rush. Amari has really good twitch, man. He really does. Robert Smith, Brian, do you think Gus Malzahn's offense hasn't evolved or changed? Everyone has figured it out. There's some truth to that, but I also think that he adjusts to the players. And I'm not trying to pick on the guys at UCF. They didn't have anybody last year that could A, run, B, was in shape. The quarterback that brought him from Arkansas came in way overweight. And C, this is maybe the biggest one, really believed in the players around him and just played fast. Tommy believes in the players around him at Florida State, and he is a freak. We'll see. But you got to have all those components for Gus's offense to work. Luke, if they do beat Bama, people in Tallahassee will be saying FSU's winning it all this year. He's got a crying emoji. Look, if you beat Bama, whatever people want to say, have at it. I really don't care. Have fun with it. Enjoy it. Go out and celebrate. Florida State football went through a 2-10 season last year. Do whatever the hell you want. That's good. They have to be able to just represent the brand in general the best they can after that. And I'm sure they got plans if they do win. All the commercials and all the little things you'll see on Instagram and TikTok and X, Facebook, different posts, people posting from the game, posting pictures with players on the field. I think that would be awesome. So I hope that is absolutely the case. Warren Hester, punter and kicker outlook scares me. I haven't heard anything about it, and I haven't followed it, to be honest. It's obviously going to take a step back. You had 2 All-Americans last year. Nobatal, is playing at 3:30 going to be tougher on Bama or the Noles? Bama. And about the same. I know the student side is going to get cooked brutal. It'll be worse on Bama. It's not near as hot in Alabama in that part of the state as it is in Tallahassee. It is definitely not. Let's see. John Doan, don't know all the linebackers, so average sacks will be below average. Yeah, I think their linebacker group is very athletic. I think I'm more worried about them against the run than I am the pass. Coverage and sacks are the least of my concern for the linebackers. They got guys who can run. Nicholson, Cryer. I mean, they got guys that can run. And then they got guys like Herring. They got like experience. Stephon Thompson. They should be in a pretty good spot. I think we're going to wrap it up here in just a second. We got one more from Jerry. Good afternoon, Brian. Good afternoon to you, Jerry. Just wondering if you have any insight on the 27 recruiting class. Florida State's off to a good start. They're in on a ton of guys, but I think a lot of kids are in a holding pattern, to be honest. They want to see this Bama game and a couple more, maybe the Miami game. But they're in on a lot more kids right now at this juncture than they normally would be. And that's very important. Again, as I noted earlier before you got in here, Jerry, Florida State's old staff, some of the guys that got canned, Autumn just going to recruit. But couldn't do it. They just didn't want it. This staff is putting out more effort. And, of course, your back office staff has to do their job. And then Mike's got to help close. But overall, this is a better recruiting staff. If they don't have a top 10 class next year, that means something went wrong on the field this year. That's kind of how I look at it. This staff will have a full year to recruit these kids plus a little more. It should go pretty darn well. That's going to wrap it up for this edition of Locked On Seminoles. I truly appreciate you all coming in. Been fun talking some Noles and some predictions. I hope you all have a great rest of your weekend. We will see you again on Monday on Locked On Seminoles. Like and subscribe. Take care.